You know, it's funny. Xtafa asks if you could go back with your current skills and knowledge, which myths would you use for the pilot episode? I wouldn't change a thing. What's really astonishing to me is thinking about how we filmed the pilot episode, because, like I said, Mythbusters was about a 25-person crew. That encompassed both M5 and M7 and all 5 hosts. So 25 people, that's including the hosts, doing all the on-the-ground production work in San Francisco. That's small for a television show. They get much larger. When we did Dangerous Toys, it was more like 70 people because we had so many camera crews. It was exhausting. So we ran lean, but that doesn't even come close to the Mythbusters pilots, which we filmed with a crew of 5. And that was 5 people filming for 6.5 weeks in San Francisco over the summer of 2002. That's a kind of lean that nobody does anymore. But back then, in those early days, Discovery had only one show based on a personality. That was Monster Garage and American Chopper. Those two, which came about, I think, 2 and 1 year before Mythbusters, respectively. Like, we were only the third, like, talent to be part of Discovery's roster way back then. And like I said, nobody makes television that lean anymore, which is kind of a shame, because I think that one of the successes of the pilots is how hungry they are. I mean, look, I think that The Empire Strikes Back is overall a more polished product, and it's my favorite of all of the Star Wars films. But I still don't think it holds a candle to the hunger and dynamism of Star Wars. Like, Star Wars was a brand new thing, made by an incredible mind, working with a group of incredible minds, an insane confluence of genius at a particular moment. And I'm not going to compare, I don't mean to compare Mythbusters to Star Wars in any meaningful cultural way, because it doesn't. But it is to say that there's a friction that the limitations give you that almost nothing else can equate to. I think if you looked at your favorite directors, you'd find that your favorite films of theirs are not the films in which they had total control. I think making a film is really hard, and it's an alchemy, and making television is really hard, and it is an alchemy of personality and circumstance and cultural timing. And when all of those things come together, and especially with Mythbusters showing up at the moment it did, the nascent sort of beginning of the makers movement. And, you know, I think we are somewhat partially responsible for raising the volume of that, but I think we're mostly lucky to have come about at exactly that moment in time, that the maker movement was ascendant, and all of a sudden the ensmallening of computers made 3D rapid prototyping, which then became rapid manufacturing possible. All of that is like the incredible luck and circumstance of our show. What was the question? Okay, let's see here. Oh, someone had a question about the bunkers. That's one I wanted to answer. Let's see here. Where is it? Okay, Xander says, how did the Mythbusters team engineer the bunkers at M5 and M7? We worked with explosives experts to come up with an inexpensive yet robust way to make sure that the things we were doing in those bunkers was safe. We also consulted with the local fire department, the local bomb squads. We had pyrotechnicians and bomb experts whenever we were doing explosions in them. But it's the second part of your question that I'm most interested in. And how hard was it? Xander wants to know, how hard was it to set off small explosives and use firearms inside of a major city like San Francisco? You know, it's funny that we made the show in San Francisco. It is one of the more environmentally restrictive cities in the country. And it's one of the reasons I love living here. I appreciate San Francisco's environmental activism. And, we found it devilishly difficult to do certain things here. We wanted to do a spy car episode in which we dumped kitchen oil behind a car and found that there's no permit you can get to dump a bunch of kitchen oil, even if it's totally natural. There are environmental restrictions to dumping that kind of stuff in the sewer, and for very good reasons. We eventually found a safe way to do that episode, but that could be really tricky in a county like San Francisco. But the real answer about how hard was it? It's not like we had to jump. Well, so first of all, you're filming for television, so there are permits. Then you are a production, so you have insurance requirements, and those have to go into the permits. So before you do anything, you've got to talk to the insurance company, make sure that what you want to do is considered safe, that they're willing to bond it. Then you go get your permit because you've got the production insurance. And these are ways in which these various entities make sure that they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's. And you do that for every single episode. Every time we're filming outdoors, that was, we went through that same process. But it got easier over time. Constantly easier and easier and easier to do the things we wanted to do. And that was mostly because of trust. That was mostly because of the trust relationship we built with the entities that we worked with, whether it was the Alameda County Sheriff's Bomb Squad or SFPD or San Francisco Fire Department. And we worked with all of those folks countless numbers of times. And what we strove to do every time they showed up on set was to show them and demonstrate that we had safety as our highest priority, that we had containment as our highest priority, that we showed respect and that we adhered to the rules that we had said. We never played it fast and loose, despite our on-camera reputation. There was never anything we did on the show that was a surprise to the experts that we were working with. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, what about the cannonball episode? Again, that was something in which we had done that same thing a couple of years before. We just didn't realize that the composition of the ground that we were firing that cannon into was fundamentally changed by the drought conditions in San Francisco. That got away from us. And I'm not saying that by way of excusing the cannonball incident, but just to say that we took safety and the excellent relationships we had with all of the professional and government entities we worked with as our highest priority. And that was, someone earlier asked about Unsung Heroes on production. Those relationships were maintained by the entire Mythbusters associate producer crew. I think at one point we had 6 producers, and for the most part we had 4. And the producers would take a story and they would own that story. They would find Jamie and I all the stuff we needed, all the experts, and then they would go get the permits and work with the locations. And then they would build the relationships with locations and with the city, state, and federal employees that we needed to work with. And all of those relationships were based on a building of trust over the years, of being as professional as we could possibly be in order to engender that trust. And that paid back dividends times a million. When we came to a result in an experiment that we were surprised by, I cannot believe I've already been talking for 50 minutes. It feels like I've been talking for 10 minutes. But whenever we had an episode in which a result changed our perspective on where this story should go, we'd be like, quick, Jax, we need a different location tomorrow. Find out if Alameda is available. Oh, it's not. Tesla's running car tests out there. Okay, Christ, maybe we go to the runway out at Crow's Landing. I mean, we had so many different relationships with so many wonderful little places that we could pivot on a dime and be at a brand new location within a couple of days. And that was also because we had great relationships with the San Francisco Film Commission. That sort of engendering trust is, honestly, it's a whole, you could teach that as a class in college in business management, because it was such a vital and important aspect of how we got to do what we did and how we were able to remain so light on our feet. We were a small crew of 25 specifically because our producers were able to do so much Swiss Army knifing with their jobs in terms of taking care of locations and clients and permits and insurance companies, et cetera. As you can tell, I love talking about this stuff. I love the mechanics, the underlying mechanics. A few years ago, I visited a big tech company, and they asked if I could meet with their design prototyping crew. And I was like, sure, but I don't know like everyone on this crew has like 3 or 4 degrees. I don't know what I have to teach you. And I sat down with this group of 40 people, and they started asking me questions. And it turns out they wanted to do rapid, iterative testing of concepts in a fast way. And they had questions just like this about the specific mechanics of how Mythbusters production worked, of how we parceled out and divvied up the tasks in order to get stuff done in time. And I realized in talking to this tech company, wow, yeah, the institutional knowledge we got on the show is really specific and strange and awesome. I will say that many of Mythbusters producers, I mean, actually, all of our Mythbusters producers have gone on to do wonderful and strange and excellent things. And yeah, the experience they got on the show is absolutely vital for that. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.